Why do objects move when you push them? What makes the wheels of a bike turn when you pedal? What makes a rocket blast off into space? Well, force does. And force is known to keep things in motion, which leads us to what we'll be learning today. Newton's laws of motion. But first, let's start with the very basics before we move on to the laws of motion. So, let's talk about the most basic question. What is force? Force is a push or a pull. It is required to change the motion of an object. Now, force always has a magnitude, meaning a size and a direction. Force can set an object in motion. It can even change the speed and direction of motion. Sometimes, it can even change the shape of something. Lots of times, there will be more than one force working on an object. The combination of all the forces acting on an object is called a net force. Think of it like a net can pull a lot of things at once. So a net force describes a lot of forces at once. Now, with some of the basics done, let's move on to the laws. Newton's first law of motion states an object in motion will remain in motion and an object at rest will remain at rest unless there's a net force acting on the object. This first law talks about how an object, for example, a car, could go in motion forever unless there's an outside force that acts on it, preventing it from continuing to go in motion. The same principle applies to an object at rest. The object will remain at rest unless an outside force prevents it from staying at rest. Now, you may have heard of this word called inertia. Inertia is matter's resistance to change in motion. So let's take a look at this situation. This person was riding the bike, and so they and the bike were moving at a steady pace. But since they stopped so suddenly, the force and the resistance of change caused them to continue moving, except not on the bike. This is also why the bike moved up when it suddenly stopped. So the bike was resisting the change, making it suddenly go up while the person didn't, making them continue to move at a steady pace. So how is inertia related to the first law? Well, the first law states an object can stay at rest or in motion unless an outside force prevents it. Inertia now is just the resistance of the object that puts up during this prevention of movement or rest. Because of this, Newton's first law is sometimes referred to as the law of inertia. Now, let's talk about Newton's second law of motion. Newton's second law of motion states the acceleration of an object is equal to the net force of an object divided by the mass of an object. This law basically states that the more force applied to an object, the faster it'll accelerate, and the more mass an object has, the more force you'll need to accelerate it. The second law also gives us a formula to find acceleration. It's acceleration equals force divided by mass. We can also rearrange this formula to find the force, so it'll be force equals mass times acceleration. Finally, let's talk about Newton's third law of motion. Newton's third law of motion states forces act in pairs. For every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction. This law basically states that whenever you put force on an object, the object puts the same but opposite force back to you. This can be explained through a basketball. When dribbling the ball hits the floor, pushing the floor, and putting force on it. The floor gives an equal but opposite reaction, so it pushes back on the ball, causing it to bounce back up. Thank you for watching. If you want to learn more about similar topics, join our Varied Sciences course. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and check out our website, link in the description.